Hi, this is Rolf Youngclass, and I'm speaking out in the October 27th, 2010 edition of the Haskell County Monitor-Chief, Sublette, Kansas. Recently, there was a big stir made in the national media about an exchange in a debate between the two candidates from Delaware running for the U.S. Senate. While much of the media interpreted the exchange as an example of Christine O'Donnell's ignorance of the issues, the truth of the matter was quite the opposite. Here's what happened. As she and her opponent, Chris Coons, discussed the role of government in determining whether or not religious ideals should be taught in school, O'Donnell used that as an opportunity to talk about, and I quote, the overreaching arm of the federal government getting into the business of the local community. She then went on to say, the reason we are in the mess we are in is because our so-called leaders no longer view the indispensable principles of our founding as truly that, indispensable. Coons then interrupted and said, one of those indispensable principles is the separation of church and state. At that point, the moderator interrupted the discussion to move them on to another issue. But O'Donnell, determined to pursue the matter further, then asked a very important rhetorical question. Where in the Constitution is the separation of church and state? Apparently thinking that her audience, a room full of law school students, would know that the implied answer to the question is, it is not. Instead, many in the room laughed at her question, thinking she must be extremely naive in her understanding of the Constitution. Now, while an interpretation of the Constitution may lead one to the conclusion that there needs to be a separation of church and state, the phrase, separation of church and state, is actually not in the Constitution. The phrase came into popular usage after a Supreme Court justice used that term in a case about 60 years ago. As a result, modern teaching about the subject has led many to believe that separation of church and state was actually written into the Constitution. So let's take a look at what the Constitution does say. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. I find it interesting how in the name of opposing establishment of religion, many seem to give little regard to the part of the sentence after the or, which indicates that the government, which includes those in the judiciary, should neither be involved in establishment of religion nor in prohibiting the free exercise of religion. While Coons and others stress that separation of church and state is the law of the land, it turns out that it cannot be the law of the land and is unconstitutional because it leads to the prohibition of the free exercise of religion, something which the Constitution specifically says that Congress, and by extension a judiciary that legislates from the bench, shall not do. Some people even believe we need freedom from religion. But if there are any judges or legislators who believe that, they need to be removed from office through the electoral process when that is possible, or through impeachment. Allowing the free expression of religion is a concept that is specified in the Constitution, and it is absurd to think that someone who pledges to uphold the Constitution could declare free expression as unconstitutional. I am convinced that what this country needs is a loosening of the control of government over religious expression, rather than having a government that more and more becomes an instrument of restricting religious expression.